Hello and welcome to a space I call the Sacred Co-Creative Space. My name is Harriet Fagerholm and I represent Global Renaissance Society. And together with me in this space, I have the honor to introduce Knut Hanstad and Leif Edvinsson. We will together share and explore the collective wisdom emerging from the co-creative field we share here in this space. And to describe this space, I use the words of Thomas Hübl, who said that if I can bow down to the empty space, I honor the most intelligent aspect of us. Because the space in between us is not just air, but the highest intelligence is here. We spent a couple of minutes together in silence, and now I declare this space open.
It recalled or reminded me of that many years ago we had a visit from India to Skandia Future Center, and it was Professor Chakraborty from Calcutta. It was from Indian Management Institute in Calcutta, and he learned us that we should not co-create by having traditional approaches like brainstorming. We should rather go for brain stilling. But some people have misunderstood it, so they are thinking about brain stealing instead of brain stilling. And the brain stilling is, of course, what we are just practicing right now. It also relates to what we are trying to do with the Open Innovation Lab of Norway, and that is to look into the O-zones. And O-zone, spelled O-Z-O-N-E, is a space full of oxygen, full of open opportunities, full of connectiveness and contactivity. So an O-zone could be actually like O3 instead of O2 or O1. And that might be the new space for innovation, O-zones, instead of laboratories and offices.
It's interesting that that we start with this stillness. We know also from research on creativity, of course, that from this space of nothing, it doesn't mean that there is nothing there, but it is the full potential. So in order to listen into the full potential, I need to listen. And for me, this is important because somehow this new language, we talk about the next renaissance, and we talk about this paradigm shift. And one of the shifts here is how we communicate. And we talk about this inspired thought and thinking. And the inspiration is then to be able to receive. And we receive through this space of emptiness. And then we have the inspired action. But we can't have an inspired action before we have this inspired thinking. And for me, this is important, and I've been working on it also privately, because that is one of my main approaches there. That is the still point. It is the still point, to go into that still point. So,
but it's probably more than that, Knut. And it's also related to the literacy. We learn to read, but where do we learn to think?
It's quite true. True.
And if we need to have the stillness for learning to think, it becomes very interesting to find those spaces of mindfulness and of energy and ozone. And we know, for example, from physical measurement that after an hour in a boardroom, we have lost a major proportion of the oxygen,
Yeah.
which means that the quality of decision is going down after an hour in the boardroom.
Yes, when I was listening to you, Leif, when you brought in the oxygen here into the space as the first, I felt how my lungs were expanding and how I was again made aware of the necessity to breathe and be present with my breathing, like I also invited you when we went into the stillness to listen to the breath, and reminded of that oxygen. And intriguing for me comes out this the relation between oxygen and thinking, like you said, that the decision makings, and also what is the environmental influences on our thinking, because the beautiful picture you share with us in this space, it also inspires my thinking, because there is the living nature to me. So already by bringing in that painting, I start to kind of resonate, and I feel my aliveness. Yes, what is it I need to be alive? Oxygen for sure, and I need to be aware of the quality of my thinking. But where do I learn it? Yes, I learn it with magnificent people who are willing to be in this space and think with me, co-thinking.
And to share with you another little short story, we at Karolinska there is a stress research institute, and one of the guys there, he was working on the content of carbon oxide in your breathing, especially your breathing out. And he told me, among others, the following: many people, perhaps not most, but many people, wake up in the middle of the night. That is actually a survival signal, because you have too little oxygen in your lungs, and that's why you wake up. So if you then take 3 or 4 deep breathings, then you reload the oxygen into your lungs, and then you fall asleep again.
Interesting.
That's very fascinating, yes. But it tells about the necessity and the importance of breathing. And also through breathing, we come into our own space, so we can become aware of what is happening inside of us in relation to the outside environment, so we can better judge what is going on really inside of me. And I think that to learn to think, we need to create these spaces where we feel safe. That is also proven, that in a group we need to feel safe, that I can really express myself. And I have practiced this with so many groups, and I feel very safe with you, both you. I feel your presence like the wise men.
But you are 500 kilometers away.
Yes, I am.
That's the technology.
That's the fascinating thing. But still, I feel.
And you know that I am just in between you and Knut.
True.
But coming back to this exercise of Karolinska Institute and Bo von Scheele, he developed a device actually which could measure the carbon oxide in your breathing out. And that took around 20 to 30 seconds to get an indicator of the proportion of oxygen in your breathing out. And that was an early predictor for stress.
Yeah. That you're waking up in the night, you mean?
Yes, well, you can go into an office and test the people and see if they are stressed or not.
Oh, yeah.
In 30 seconds, you get an indicator of the proportion of oxygen in your breathing out. 30 seconds.
Very efficient indeed.
Yes. And especially when you think about as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, about the youngsters who are disoriented and full of stress, how can we offer them brain-stilling spaces? And that's why we are together with people from Japan and Japan Innovation Network, as well as the Future Center Alliance Japan, looking for how can we establish wise spaces. And this is something that they are working on. And they are, of course, combining it with modern approaches like blockchain. So they call it blockchain creativity.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And of course, if you see your brain as a Lego block, it might fit into another Lego block, but it might also not fit into it.
But
And then it becomes very interesting when it does not fit anymore.
Yeah, that's what I mean too, because what we are also talking about now in our context, that is also how to create optimal environment for exchanging, not just about consciousness and the thinking, but also the energetic environment. And of course, the energy is about the breathing, so that's the connection there. But for me, then it raises the question: okay, how do we create this environment and space for brain stilling, and then this new literacy? Because there is a connection there with all this. Because now we discuss this, I see that we have a lot of aspects, in this new literacy, and we want at least to gather those aspects and parameters together. So we learn the coding, as we discussed earlier as well, the coding of this new approach between the conscious thinking related to this deep breathing, and then also how do we exchange values on this deeper level when we are in this space.
And one of the, so to say, stages for exchange is joy.
Mm.
And that's why one of the Nobel Prize laureates, the guy behind the graphene, the very interesting material, that was discovered in what he called Happy Friday Lab, because he was developing laboratory enjoyment on Friday afternoon, like a happy hour. And this happy hour in the lab resulted in playing around with different experiments. And this experiment led to the discovery of graphene, which was awarded by the Nobel Prize.
That makes me so happy. And for me, it's like that when we would allow ourselves also as adults to play around more and explore more with an open mind, and find the people, the brains which the Lego blocks are fitting in, that yes, you want to play with me, yes, let's play together and see what can emerge from our explorations and imaginations, the creative imagination.
It is very much. And I don't know if I have the exact phrasing, but I saw a film yesterday about the life of Maria Callas. And that film, there was a saying that a very, very qualified song is not about music. It's about harmony with other parts of the universe.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think we then also we approach now something with this energy. We know that also from artists, very skilled artists, they can be on a very high technical level, but they don't communicate. They don't touch people's hearts, and that's the difference. So we have an artist, he or she is not that skilled technically, but still communicate on a level that touches the hearts of the audience.
Contactivity.
Yes, that is really the contactivity. And I, I think this is because you mentioned joy, and Harriet and I, we have discussed this a lot, because well, Harriet has even now created a program like the Joy of Being, and for me it was revelation when I discovered that the recognition of love, because we all talk about love, you know, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, and I provoke people and said, okay, what is really love? And for sure, it is about the feeling that we sense that we are safe, as we discussed, to create this safe environment. And when we feel safe, when we are seen and understood, then we create the environment for the co-creation. And then it's like it's unleashes the joy. So for me, the joy is the recognition of love, true love. If I feel it's joy there, is it okay? Here is a deeper level. It's not just we tell each other that we love each other, but there is a space, it's a loving atmosphere. And I think this is so important in this new literacy, because we need to know what is love truly, because we have lost the connectivity with the term love. We have misused that term. So how do we put that into a new renaissance?
Very good. And I think you might consider to work on that with your Renaissance program on coding for the future with those contactivity dimensions.
Yeah.
And in doing that, perhaps you should also revisit with Reidar Nordby. He's just around the corner for you.
Yeah, he is. I know that. I know it. You don't.
He would probably enjoy to have a chat with you on some of these aspects.
Yeah, now you know, we have developed much more now, you know, and so I think this is all about the timing, and that is, I don't know why that came up now, but in this discussion, but in this environment, I know also that when we talk about stilling the brain, when we are inspired, we need to have the patience in order to act at the right time. And we all know that also from business and so on, that the right time to be the right human being at the right time and in the right place. But I think this is is even more and more important, not the least in order to recognize both when we should still the brain and we should act.
So you might be able to look for when you should have brainstorming and brain stilling and brain stealing.
Yeah. And then, yeah.
And brain stealing is coming close to what is called intellectual properties.
Yeah.
And as you know, intellectual properties and patents have an old history as well. Yeah. But today, this is the new trade, actually. Trade in ideas.
Yeah.
Not trade in products, but trade in ideas.
Yeah, but then you talk about the stealing. For me, stealing is it can be interpreted two ways. The one is, of course, that we are stealing in the way that we are copying, and many they copy ideas, they steal. But the other side of it is that we are inspired by sharing ideas. Mm-hmm. So how do we relate to this gap? Because this is again about the source people share when we start to share ideas or whatsoever it is. And we talk a lot of this also in the New Renaissance. It is okay. It's not what we say. It's not the action in itself either. But what is the source? And if the source is creating distrust as an effect, then we need again to find out, okay, who also are the people I can trust? Because what we talk about now is about trust.
Yes, and trust is the fundamental bridge for knowledge sharing. If I don't trust you, I won't share the knowledge. So trust is the bridge on which knowledge flow. And that relates also to that we need to build those trustful bridges And in paintings from China, you might have seen that many of the bridges are red. And then the question is, why is the bridge red? Well, it is to keep the evil ones away and get a trustful bridge.
As a skill for the future, this is one of the most important ones, I think, to also, how do we learn this, to build these bridges of trust and recognize the difference of, if, because we are also so used that people think that they have to find, they don't trust themselves, that what I have to give into this space, I have wisdom inside me. They try to find it outside themselves, so they're kind of picking and in a way stealing. But if the concept, the idea is not, if the energy is not right, if it's not in harmony with the universe, if I come back to that, then it won't live, because the knowledge needs to become a living knowledge, and I can only live it if I have fully embodied it and experience the truth of it. So how do I recognize the truth of what is a trusting relationship, where I can freely share my knowledge and trust that I have the space to really expand, and I will be safe. People won't, steal what I bring up. But what is then, of course, what is my knowledge and what is your knowledge? What is our knowledge? What is collective knowledge? This is a kind of huge space to me to explore.
It is, and that's why you have the academical practice of acknowledging others. To write an acknowledgement, to make references and citations. And that is to honor others. And there are very interesting research going on regarding weaving a community with a modern technology by sharing thoughts, ideas, feelings, etc. As you said, we have to learn to do it in a trustful way.
When we talk about this source, I want to refer this back to what you mentioned there when we discussed it earlier, that you talked about the counterforce of drone factories, because we discussed also, the topic of fake news. Because for me, this is really, this is old esoteric wisdom, and we do really understand it more and more, that the truth is releasing. So we talk about, if we don't talk the truth, how can we trust? And how do we recognize the truth in a world where we now see that we have fake news on a level that we never have been influenced by?
So like Harriet said, we have to learn to trust. And that is perhaps a part of the soft codification. So you have hard codification with 1 and 0s, and then you have a soft one, which is about relationships and feelings and weak signals. When you're blinking a lot, it is sometimes related to that you are actually lying.
This left and right.
We have a lot of physical symptoms when you are lying, and even if we don't understand it, we pick it up and realize that is probably not true.
So we need to integrate the wisdom of our bodies in this.
Wow, yes.
Because we have that innate wisdom through the body. That's why what I want to contribute in my work through the In Tune work, I have been developing the methodologies to help people to come back to the body resonance. Because there, when you said, Knut, to find the truth, your body really expresses the truth of at least what is good for you. Because you feel an expansion in your body and like an openness, and these positive feelings of joy and inspiration are there when you are, this is right for me. This is this kind of thing. And of course the body, closes in when you feel that, oh no, you get this feeling that this might not be the right place for me to open up and share freely. So we need the body to help us.
And that reminds me of a little story. I was meeting many years ago in a symposium, a researcher from Italy, and she told me about when you are going to a buffet full of fruits and meat and wine and cheese, etc. What should you select? And then you should listen to the inner signals, and then you will pick what you need.
Yeah.
So you can test your contactivity and connectivity at the buffet table.
I do practice that nowadays.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I have developed my body sensitivity a lot over many years now. So I do, yes. And that's also a muscle to train, your trust to that sensitivity. Because especially the older you get, I also realize that, but my body tries to tell me, don't eat so much. It's not good for you to eat too much.
But I have a problem with that because if I listen to my instinct, I go to the sweets.
Me too.
And some other inside says me that is not the best place to go to.
But,
isn't that, Leif, sorry, some addictive places in your brain? Because I have also worked myself through the sugar dependency I developed from childhood, being brought up with all the sweets and the good stuff. It's really an addiction. My brain is and as soon as yesterday I had a very sweet cake and I felt it was activated.
I had a very sweet cake this weekend, and I just loved it. I felt it deep.
Now I get an alert saying that I'm almost running out of energy in my telephone, but not in my heart and brain.
No. Yeah.
So we have probably to round off here.
Yeah, we have.
All right. Yes, let's conclude this co-creative space of shared wisdom. Thank you so much, Leif and Knut, for being here, and happy to share this space with you this time.
And I will try to avoid to go to the sweets now.
Yes, you can do that.
Go for Happy future.
Be well. Take care.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.